Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your latest source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
I'm here. I made it. I showed up. Maybe that's what I'm doing for this podcast.
Unlike the Packers.
Oh, man. That was just ugly.
Yes, we are joining you here Sunday night following a Packers 27-10 loss at home to the New York, New Jersey Jets. And a game, frankly, where the Packers just got embarrassed. They got outclassed. They got outplayed. They looked like by far the worst team. And we'll get further into it, but if last week was a bit of a wake-up call, like, hey, team's got to start focusing up, I think it's appropriate to start thinking about whether or not it's time to hit the panic button on this team.
5-alarm fire. P-A-N-I-C. Panic.
I don't think it's entirely unreasonable, but we're definitely going to get... Go ahead, yeah.
This is the first time they've lost 2 in a row in the same regular season.
Yeah,
as well,
under Matt LaFleur.
Under LaFleur, as well as losing at home so badly in the regular season, which I don't know if they've lost at home under LaFleur in the regular season either. Is that correct?
They've lost at home in the regular season.
Did they lose one? Okay.
I think so, yeah. But anyway, tough loss for the Packers, but we're going to break it all down for you here today. We're going to still hit you with our pregame on Thursday, and if you want updates on our episodes and any news and notes for the Packers going through this week, as well as our ideas for how maybe they could try and right the ship, come give us a follow on Twitter, at FatherSonPacker. We would really appreciate it. We post news, notes, articles that other people write that we find interesting, that we think would be really informative to other Packers fans, our thoughts on different breaking news items throughout the week, post about new episodes. You can also find us on YouTube at Father Son Packers Podcasts. There we post all of our episodes as well, so come give us a subscription there. Come give us a follow on Twitter. It would really help our numbers, and we would really appreciate it. But Dad, do you want to kind of just get down to this and start with our gut checks?
Yeah, and so my gut check would be, this is probably the first time I felt like they just looked like the worst team on the field. As opposed to making mistakes here and there, they just looked like they weren't as good as the Jets out there. And this, I think, is the first time in a while they just looked like flat out not as good as the other team. They're just getting beaten up and down all over the place in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, to me, I agree. This is the first time I feel like they've really... This is the first time I feel like they've really been thoroughly outclassed by another team since the NFC Championship in 2020 or 2019 against the Niners. That was the last time I feel like they were thoroughly outclassed by a team like this.
What about that Buccaneers regular season game?
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right.
That would be the last. Since then, this is the first time since that game I felt like they just looked like they got outclassed on the field.
Yes, where they were just... And it's one thing to get outclassed by a Tampa Bay team with Tom Brady and a bunch of Pro Bowlers, or that San Francisco team that ended up going to the Super Bowl. Both those teams ended up going to the Super Bowl. This is the Jets, and this is a good Jets team. Like this is definitely good for the Jets, but you just got completely outplayed. And my gut check reaction is, this team is not as good as I thought it was. I thought this team could be competitive in the NFC, in a weaker NFC, but I think they're lucky to be the 5th or 6th. They'd be lucky to be the 6th best team in the NFC right now. And I think that's being generous right now that they could even be that. Because, I mean, they're 3-3 now. They're at 500. They've lost 2 in a row in what's supposed to be the easy part of their schedule. And it's just nothing is working on any side of the ball. And we were talking about this before we started recording, but there is nothing this team is good at. They're not good at anything. They don't run well. They don't pass well. They don't protect well. They don't play good, consistent defense. They can't stop the run. They can't really stop the pass. They did a little bit today, but Zach Wilson. They don't rush the passer particularly well, unless your name is Rashawn Gary.
But their pressure rates have been pretty good.
But there's just nothing this team does particularly well, is my gut check. And it's just not a good football team right now. They're just not. Yeah. They're just not good.
You touch on one thing you mentioned. That was part of my gut check. Is like Just at this point, recalibrating my expectations for this year.
Yeah, which I think is the biggest. That's like one of the biggest things you can. That's one of the harshest things you can say after a loss is this loss was so bad. I don't have expectations for this team anymore.
So we'll see how they go. But now I'm got different expectations for what to try to get out of this year. Now we'll see how
they just looked so inept on so many facets of the football game, like at different times throughout the game, but just at so many times just looked like they couldn't do, they had an idea of what they wanted to do and just could not do it and couldn't find a way to make it work, and it was all bad. But
well, I would say the second half was all bad. The first half was half bad.
Yeah, but the second half is some of the worst football I've seen them play. Where on both sides of the ball they could not do anything.
We'll get back. We will get into that in more detail. But let's
those are gut checks.
Let's get off of and
as
move
you can
on
tell,
to
this
the
is
details.
As you can tell, this is going to be a bit of a downer of an episode. I mean, I think we're both not feeling very confident with how this team is looking right now, but we're going to bring you episodes rain or shine. And the next part after our gut check is a quick injury update. It actually seems...
I think I just saw, speaking of rain or shine, some animals going by in pairs outside the window.
Yes, it's a complete apocalypse going on in
we got a
Titletown.
deluge coming down right now.
But anyway, so for the injury update, Randall Cobb, this is probably the most serious one, was carted off, and it looked season-ending at first. I think it seemed like he thought he had broken his ankle, and it was maybe even career-ending. But it does seem that at least that was avoided, and according to Rappaport, it is thought to be a high ankle sprain, but he will need more tests. He was in better spirits in the locker room, apparently, so that's at least some good news.
And I think it definitely looked that they actually had X-rays reported as negative, right?
That's good.
Actually, is that right? Was that
I hadn't
that
seen
report?
that. I hadn't seen that, but I believe you had seen it.
That's...
Well, you look that up, and I'll keep ripping through the injury report.
I'm going to go a quick look, see if I'm remembering this correctly.
I'll just keep reading out the rest. So Cobb, it looked really bad. It's still probably not great. He'll probably still miss at least 4 to 6 weeks. Probably still go on IR, but at least it's not career-threatening or season-ending, hopefully. Beyond that, Jake Hansen actually came in for Royce Newman at one point. They were having so much trouble protecting that, and Royce was just getting killed out there that we'll talk about later, but they put in Jake Hansen for a drive. But he had to leave with a biceps injury pretty soon after that, and Royce Newman came back in for the second half. Aaron Jones was limping around a bit, but he came back in, and he seems like he was okay. He was able to come back in and participate for the rest of the game. And then Rodgers got banged up a couple of times. He was shaking his hand out most of the game with that thumb injury he sustained against the Giants. It seemed like it was bothering him for a lot of the game, and he was looking at it a lot and grimacing a lot. But that's definitely something to keep an eye on through the rest of this week.
Okay, so according to Ian Rappaport, the X-rays did already come back negative, and that he's going to get an MRI to verify what the ankle injury is. Okay.
Well, at least that's some good.
And
it's not as bleak as it appeared.
A little comment on Hansen coming in. So it sucks that he got hurt after finally coming in. Who don't know how severe the biceps injury is. But did the Packers coaching staff just hear all the calls for Royce Newman to be benched and said, "Oh, we'll show you. We're going to put in Jake Hansen."
Well, I think what I heard was during LaFleur's interview, they said that they thought the offense needed a spark, so they put Jake Hansen in.
I saw that quote.
And it's like, that's the saddest spark I've ever seen in my entire life.
Unless you're trying to set the house on fire.
I mean...
What kind of spark are we looking for here? But, so that was a bit of a surprise. And he did okay. It was the 2-minute drill that he was in there for. Just before half, when they got the field goal. And I actually went back and watched that part because I kind of actually missed it.
It was all quick game, though. It's not like he had to do any drop back
game, and
passing.
He's mostly kind of looking for somebody to block as they're playing prevent defense. So
yeah,
he did nothing wrong. He's looking for work. But it was not a very, high stress situation that he had to block under. And I didn't see how he got injured either.
I didn't either. I barely noticed. I didn't notice until halftime that he had come in. I saw tweets about it at the half, and I was like, "Oh, Jake Hansen came in. Okay. I was wondering if
And
Royce got
then
hurt or
he
something.
was already gone.
Yes, and then Royce came right back in at the half. But anyway, those are our injury updates. Definitely the Rodgers one is going to be something to keep an eye on. Cobb's probably going to go on IR, unfortunately. And with the Hansen one, we're probably just going to see the same starting O-line we've been seeing. But, Dad, do you want to move down to our kind of more in-depth game breakdown?
Yeah, so let's get into our game breakdown. Start this time.
Let's start with the defense, just because
right.
the offense, I think, was... Last week, it was the defense was the big problem. This week, I would say the offense was the big problem. So let's get the smaller problem out of the way first and start with the defense, I guess. We're
going to go good defense, good offense, bad offense.
Sounds like a plan. You want to kick us off?
So I'll go with... Let me get to my notes on what was good about the defense. And I just
There were times it was okay.
Oh,
it was good in the first half.
If you look at the first half, they're going toe-to-toe with the Jets' defense. I mean, they weren't giving up anything. 3-and-outs, sacks, stuffs, pass breakups. I mean, they only gave up 3 points in the first half, and that was because of the Packers' fumble that set them up in position for the field goal already. So the defense was stellar. I mean, they really only didn't give up any points on their own in the entire first half. So that was looking good. And you know they seem to be changing their philosophy on the secondary a little bit, where they talked about Jair shadowing Garrett Wilson a lot. I have to watch the All-22 to see if that's true, but more actual pass breakups and hands on the ball in passing plays in the first half, where they're knocking the ball away from receivers instead of sitting back waiting to catch and then coming up to make the play.
Yeah, and they were playing a lot more aggressively, just like Barry said he was going to let them do. They were definitely having Jair follow Garrett Wilson, at least in that first half. It seemed like Jair had like 3 pass breakups in that first half alone.
Yeah, I was thinking I want to go back and count. Did they have as many pass breakups in this game as they'd had the whole season combined?
They did not have 7, no, but they had at least 50%.
They were like halfway there, I think, in the first half.
Yeah, I mean Jair had 3 by himself.
And they didn't get very many, but there weren't that many passing plays in the second half.
And they were playing a lot more aggressive. Like, they were playing man coverage in the first half, which they hadn't been playing hardly any of, like, going into this game.
And even their run defense wasn't bad in the first half. They were getting a fair number of stops near the line of scrimmage in the first half, especially the first, 2 or 3 drives.
Yeah, I mean, if we can go to my good thing now, I mean, mine was just the whole first half. Was pretty good. Do you want to add one?
I just have one more little thing to say, and that was Enigbari getting his first sack of his
career sack. He looked good. That's my guy.
Yeah.
That was my guy going into the draft. I wanted him in the 3rd, but we got him in the 5th, so I'll take it.
Even better. Thank goodness we didn't get him in the 3rd.
Yeah, it would have been a bust almost instantly.
Right?
I still can't believe Sean Ryan can't even make it on the active game day roster. I just don't. It doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Every prospect should be begging the Packers
not to
draft him in the
3rd round.
Take me in the 2nd. Take me in the 7th. Just don't take me in the 3rd.
They need to trade out of the 3rd next year. They need to do something with that pick. But anyway, my good thing for the defense was the whole first half was really good, just like you were saying, just to kind of build on top of that and give a few more details. They, like you said, they limited the Jets to just 3 points, and that was off of a short field. They limited the Jets to a net 65 yards of total offense. It's awesome. Just the secondary playing way more aggressively, not playing off. It seemed like they had made the right adjustments, like going into this game. Like I said, they were playing some more man coverage. It looked like all of the things that we had been asking for. And then the second half came, and the defense just collapsed. It's another game where the defense kind of collapsed at halftime, very similar to last week, where half hits, they come back out, and they just can't get a stop. I mean, they got absolutely ran all over by Breece Hall and the Jets in the second half. Overall, the Jets running backs had 26 carries for 157 yards, almost 6 a carry. Breece Hall was most of that with 20 carries for 116 yards. They had 3 explosive runs of more than 20 yards. And then when you look at it just by half, in the first half they had 12 carries for 63 yards, and then the second half they had 21 carries for 116 yards. And I mean, at the end of the game,
I was going to look up that split, and I was wondering what it was from halftime. Did you even count the Braxton Berrios touchdown run?
Yes, I counted the Braxton Berrios,
which was another one tossed in there for an explosive run.
Exactly, and I mean, they allowed, according to Andy Herman, they allowed 3 straight scoring drives late in the game. I mean, 4 plays, 74 yards, touchdown, 5 plays, 66 yards, touchdown, 13 plays, 58 yards, field goal.
That sounds very familiar to last week where the Giants scored on 5 straight.
It's just like last week where they come out of the tunnel at halftime and they just fall apart. They can't do anything.
What is happening at halftime this year?
I don't know. And it's like...
We've had a bunch of games where the second half's just been a total dud.
They come out in the second half and they forget how to... I mean, it's not like they were really stopping the run in the first half.
It wasn't bad, though.
But it didn't feel bad. I mean, they were still giving up 5 a carry, but it didn't feel like they were running for... There was one stretch of the game where late in the game, it was like carry for 12 yards, carry for 12 yards, carry for 8 yards, carry for 6 yards, carry for 12 yards. And it's just like, my God, they cannot stop these guys.
Here's the stretch of carries there that you talk about. 34-yard touchdown run for Hall, 1 yard for Hall, 12 for Hall, 12 for Hall, 25 for Carter, 8 for Carter.
That was all in a row, right?
Those were carries in a row. Yeah, those.
Yeah, could. It was the sequence where it was like, man,
those are more than one drive. Well, because one was the 34-yard touchdown, but then it went to the next drive and. Oof.
But it was just like back to back to back to back, and you could just feel the Packers like will breaking with every single subsequent carry. And it was like, man, they are just getting, like, the Jets are just imposing their will on these guys. They can't do anything. The D-line is like just getting obliterated on every single play, and also just out-coached. I mean, some of the play calls by the Jets offense were very, very, like, hats off to Mike LaFleur, because he was coaching his butt off in this game. The one where they handed it to Breece Hall, and he was supposed to pitch it back to Garrett Wilson, and then he just kept it and ran, and that was the touchdown run he had. I think it was that 34-yard you mentioned.
34-yard.
Yeah, and I mean, he wasn't supposed to do that, but he saw the opening and went for it. Breece Hall's a dog. I mean,
that was the one that went around the left. Did that go around the left side?
It was to the left, and it looked like an end around, and then he just cut it back to the right and just went straight upfield. Quay Walker missed the Quay Walker came too far over. Oh, that's the one where
Quay Walker over pursued.
Yep.
And if he stayed in position, it's a 4 or 5 yard run. He over pursues, and that leaves it open. And that was the one where it's like everybody's like trying to grab a hold of him. It's like, he should go down to the 10. Oh, wait, no, now he's at the 5. Oh, now he's all the way in. There were a lot of missed tackles in that second half, too. That was the other thing that was going on here. And they didn't seem to have any answer for Breece Hall's stiff arm. The straight arm is just like burying everybody.
He's got to be the strongest man alive, because he was... He was very impressive in this game, I will say. Breece Hall was really kicking their butts out there. And
you know, one thing I want to add, so I didn't have too much more to add to the bad things that you've already put on there, because I do have similar notes. But one thing about this, that they didn't even force the Jets into a third down on those 3 scoring drives until they got inside the 5 on the last of the scoring drives. So they're basically running the clock down almost to nothing and then kicking the field goal to make it a 3-score game. So they didn't even get to a third down.
But the thing is, like, shout out to the defense for, like, they could have given up there at the goal line. I will give them credit there. They could have just given up. The game was over. They could have let them score. But I think they showed a lot of pride and resolve to hold them to a field goal there. But it's the same old song and dance where the first down and second down defense are so bad and so passive that you're not even forcing third downs and like difficult situations for the offense. They've had some of the like they've had bottom like quartile first and second like defensive like ratings yards per play on first and second downs for the season, and they've been like living off of like being very good at third down going into the Giants game. That's how it was as well. But they can't even force third downs. I mean,
not this game. They didn't get it like 2 scores and then all the way down inside the 5 on the next one before they finally forced a third down.
They're just getting it walked down the field on them, and
it really kind of felt like things really fell apart after that.
The block
especially
punt.
After the block punt for a touchdown. But you know, the offense cut it to 7.
Yeah.
Even after the offense cut it to 7 after the block kick. So they block kick, made it 14. Offense scores, get down to 7. It's a 1-score game, but the defense never got it back together. And of course, the offense that was it. That's what they had.
Couldn't get it back together because
they had that one scoring drive, and then they never got anything going again.
I mean, and what even is there to say? Like, for the defense, it's like, I was listening to, I think it was Justice Mosqueda of Acme Packing Company, who was like, what can you change? Like, the secondary is locked in. The linebackers are locked in based on, like, investment and, just investment and draft picks and money. The edge rushers are locked in based on who you have. The only thing you can really change is the D linemen. And I don't know, like, do you put Wyatt in instead of Lowry? Do you put Wyatt in instead of Reed? Do you play Slayton more? Like, what even is the answer? Do you just have to trust that the players you have out there are going to play better? I don't know if you can do that at this point.
I think the one player that you could reasonably expect to improve as the game goes on is going to be Walker. And it would have made a difference on a number of plays today.
Walker or Wyatt?
Quay Walker. I think you can still expect him. Really, you could also... Well, Wyatt has played so little, it's hard to tell how good he is right now. But I think
they
you can
need to
expect
play
Walker to improve. Yes, they do. But he's been hurt for the last couple of weeks, so... But maybe he'll start to improve. The last time he played, he only got 7 snaps, but he looked good in those 7 snaps. I remember after that game. That was, I guess, 2 games ago against New England. Or was it even the one before that? It's like, oh, he had a good PFF rating, but he only played 7 snaps. Let's see what happens to the next game. And, well, we didn't get a next game. We're still waiting.
Quad injury.
We're still waiting for that next game. But I think we can expect Quay Walker to improve his recognition. I think part of it is like this play where Breece Hall cut back. He got out of position and didn't maintain the kind of integrity of the structure of the defense and gave up the opening for the big run. And that's, I think, a learning experience. I hope. I mean, we're looking about where can we find
any kind of ounce of hope,
the avenues for improvement for the team. So that's one. Though I felt like they did something today that did improve the team.
They played more man coverage
in the first half. They did what everybody was asking for, and it was working for a while. Then they didn't have to pass much in the second half. He only threw for 110 yards.
Yeah,
like
I
nothing.
mean, you did see the downside of the man coverage when Corey Davis hit that big 40-yarder. That's because they were playing man, and that's why Barry wants to play zone, is so you don't give up those big plays. But if it's 140-yarder and the rest of it you're holding them pretty tight,
clearly it was worse.
It was worse, last
before.
week. Yeah.
What they were doing before was worse than giving up the occasional long play.
They're still having trouble, like, in the middle of the field, though, and the Jets just didn't run any crossers. Like, they didn't run any. And
that was kind of interesting with when Green Bay was, like, worst in the league against crossers.
Yeah, and the Jets just didn't run any, so I'm not convinced that that's fixed at all because it just wasn't tested today. I think that's probably still going to be a problem going forward and something to keep an eye on.
I actually have something to say about some of that when we get down to the end. I'll actually get back to that a little bit. Think about what's going on or what it means maybe. But that's, I think, one of the... So I talked about what I think we can maybe hope for improvement in the defensive side. But let's move on to the offense.
Yeah, let's move on to the offense. I think the offense was the big problem today. Last week, I thought the defense was the big problem. This week, I'd say 65-35. I think the offense should take the blame. I mean, they just looked so inept out there. But let's start with the good stuff. I'll kick us off. I only have one note, and that's that Tunyon looked really good. 10 catches for 90 yards on 12 targets. It felt like he was the entire offense for large portions of the game. I was like, oh, we got another completion? Yep, it's Tunyon again. And, I mean, at least he's looking like kind of back to his old self. He looks like he looks like he has his juice back a little bit, maybe faster than we even thought he would.
He's moving better.
And I mean, he was their whole offense, and that he's my only positive on the offensive side for today.
And I think I saw a tweet just before, when at the very end when I was getting ready, so I should have grabbed it. That maybe this is the first tight end with 10 receptions for Green Bay, and I don't know how long.
I wouldn't know. I would guess Jermichael Finley, but I don't know.
So I have to wait to see. But it seemed like, I think that's somebody tweeted about it, how long it's been, and I think it's been a while since a tight end had 10 receptions in a game for Green Bay. But I also had the Tunyon thing, and that he led the team in targets and catches with 10. I have mostly we're kind of looking at small things. So I think as I reconfigure my expectations for this team, I'm going to take time to enjoy the small things.
Stop and smell the roses, so to speak.
Amari Rogers had his first catch of the year, and it looked like a nice, clean route and catch.
And I think, was it 5th catch of his career?
That might be right. He may have had 4 last year.
Yeah,
but it looks good. Career. There was, it was a nice, clean route. He was open. He broke open. He caught the ball, and he got it. He was actually doing. They did use him. We were speculating this before the game. The jet motion was almost all Amari Rogers today.
And I'm starting to think that he is. I mean, he's so bad at punt returning that I think people underestimate that he could maybe still be helpful as a receiver. I think he might be a better receiver than he is. I think he's a terrible punt returner, but I think he might be a better receiver than he is a punt returner.
He does a little bit with some of those gadget plays too, and those end arounds and things, but he was bold as a returner today. He was taking the ball and getting smacked, and
that's not
broke
a
couple broke a couple tackles and got some yardage on a couple of them.
Like 4 yards. I was gonna say
one of them was like a dozen. No. I think
no. He was bad on punt returns today, in my opinion.
All right.
I thought he was awful.
At one point, I need to look up this before we get off here because I am disagreeing with that.
I thought he was very poor on punt returns today. I thought he took a bunch that he should not have taken. He took
some chances.
He had 5 returns. He had 5 returns for 22 yards and a long of 8.
Oh, it was only 8. Okay, I thought he got that one for like a dozen.
Yeah, so he averaged 4
That was the one
return.
up the middle.
You got 5 chances on it, and you get a long of 8.
Well, yeah, he did have a couple where he was taking it. Got like at the end. He picked up the ball that bounced in the air at the sideline. He was never going to get that return. But anyway, I actually thought it wasn't too bad. But he was definitely doing some risk taking today. But let's get back to
offense. We'll talk about special teams a little more later because it wasn't good today either. Nothing was.
Lazard had a couple of nice catches today.
Yeah, when he hit that touchdown to Lazard, I was like, maybe we still have a chance.
Right, there's a nice back shoulder spinning catch that then his momentum pulled him right around to cross the goal line, and that completion down the left sideline was both a perfectly placed ball and still a difficult catch. And some of that we could talk a little bit about as well, of what that might mean in general for the offense, which is not in a good thing category. But their 2-minute drill was not too badly run. It was like 31 seconds left, and they were able to get way down inside. I think they got inside the 15 or inside the red zone anyway.
They moved it down, I think, to the 12.
Yeah. And
that 2-minute drill looked beautiful. I was like, maybe this will be like the kickstart that'll like wake up their offense going into the second half.
That looked good. I will, of course. It comes with a caveat of the mistake they made earlier, which Greg Olson was telling us over and over again. Why didn't they call that timeout when the Jets had the ball and they could have had another 30 seconds? They're at the 12 and they have 30 seconds left to try to get it in the end zone instead of 4.
Doesn't make much sense, does it?
Nope.
I think they're just, you know what? They're just not used to having that many timeouts. It's a whole new thing for them to have timeouts at the end of a half.
I didn't want to call it because I assumed we were down to our last one.
Exactly. It's like, I don't know what to do when I have timeouts left. It's a whole new frontier for me. But yes. They completely bungled that one.
And so we could use this to transition to the rest of our bad things the offense did. So that was like a coaching decision. The O-line could not run block, awful. And pass pro was a mess.
This is one of the worst O-line performances I've ever seen from the Packers.
And I felt like in watching it and rewatching some of the plays, even though there were some cases of somebody just getting their ass handed to them in a one-on-one matchup, examples, Quinnen Williams firing right past Runyon before he could even react.
Quinnen Williams looked like prime Aaron Donald. He looked insane. He had I'll just read it off really quick while we mentioned him, but he had, let's see, Quinnen Williams had by himself 5 pressures, 2 sacks, and 3 run stops per Paul Brettel. I mean, he was just feasting on our guards all game.
Yep. And so there was that play, and there was the Newman got put flat on his back again, though Rodgers
Which time? He gave up 6 pressures by himself.
Well,
according to PFF.
I mean, literally on his back, literally knocked on his ass again. But Rodgers actually managed to jump out of the grasp of the. This actually turns into one of the good things where Rodgers actually jumped out of the grasp of the pass rusher and completed it to Tunyon for the toe tap on the sideline, which was one of the nicer, after the Lazard catch, probably the second nicest play of the game. The Cobb one was pretty good too, where he got the catch on the left. But so there were a couple times where obviously they just got beat one-on-one. But even more than that, I feel like it's the biggest problem, and I think for the whole year, is more missed assignments and bad communication than actually just getting outmatched physically one-on-one. And there are a lot of people at fault. Newman, moving over to help Myers, leaving a free blitz to come in on Dillon. Though that play, I think, may have gotten overturned by a penalty, but still, it's just a terrible play. He's going to help Myers and just leaving nobody for this guy to cover the guy coming running in. Even Bakhtiari blew one where he is and Runyon are facing a stunt, and the guy comes around from Runyon's side around Bakhtiari, and Bakhtiari is still engaged with the original outside rusher, and the guy comes around clean.
How much of this do you think is Stenavich not being the O-line coach anymore? Because it's the same guys as last year. It's pretty much the same starters they had last year, but you're swapping in. You're just moving Elton over to right tackle, and you're swapping in Bakhtiari instead of Nyman. It's pretty much the same starters, but they look horrible.
Do we need Stenavich to go back to the O-line room? Can we demote him back to the O-line room full time?
I think he needs to spend more time with the O-line room, because that's the most tangible difference is he's not there.
Yeah, and I have a number of other. So that's the biggest problem, I think, on the whole team right now. Is the O-line. I mean,
line. Can I talk about the O-line too a little bit then?
Sure, why don't you jump in on the O-line before I go on to something else?
I mean, they just got absolutely embarrassed today. I mean, like I said, Royce Newman gave up 6 pressures by himself. Quinnen Williams looked like a Pro Bowler out there. He's probably going to go to the Pro Bowl this year, honestly. He's having a crazy good year.
He could be an All-Pro this year, the way he looked against the Packers.
And I mean, they just couldn't. They couldn't run block. They only had 19 carries for 60 yards. They couldn't pass block. They allowed 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. I mean, they were getting Rodgers killed out there. And I mean, Rodgers wasn't exactly helping himself. He was burping the ball like a baby back there. But the O-line was awful. I've never seen Runyon play so bad. This is the worst game I've ever seen him play in his career. For a guy that had no pressures given up going into the game, he was out there they made him look foolish. I mean, I have never seen this O-line look so discombobulated and slow out of their stance and slow to fire off the ball and just getting blown up every time they have to Dillon was getting hit in the backfield every other run.
Oh yeah, on the run blocking, they're just getting outquicked. They're getting the blocking, the defenders just running by the blockers before they even get ready, and they're already there and hitting Dillon in the backfield. And
just as a wider view, I mean, the whole game, offense, defense, the whole Packers team just looks so slow. I mean, they just look like they are less explosive, less powerful, less burst than the other team. They just look like the less athletic team out there. And it's so, it looks so bad on the O-line. I mean, this is one of the worst games I've seen from them collectively as a unit. And they got embarrassed out there today.
Yeah, and I would say as a unit is mostly the problem here. It's their work as a unit. I feel like it's the biggest problem. Would
you make any changes? Would you change anything? What would you change?
I would put for my money, I would like to see them try Nyman at right tackle with Jenkins at right guard.
See, I've been pushing.
I think that puts their 5. I know you've been disagreeing with.
I know, and I'm actually, and the point, and what I was going to say is I've been a strong, they need to keep Elton at right tackle and let him have time. If the team's going to be this bad, they need to move him back to guard. I'm sorry, but it's just I don't think I'm not trying to. I'm still of the mind that he can play right tackle and probably is still the right tackle of the future. But the whole point of him being able to play every position is so you can get your best 5 out there. And Newman is just he's worse than he was last year, even. I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And so my point about Nyman is get your best 5 out there. Your other option would be to put Zach Tom out there, but I think if you want your best 5, then you would put Nyman on instead of Tom at this point in their careers.
And that's assuming Nyman can play right tackle, which we don't even know.
No, and you're not going to put him in a guard, so you're not going to have like Jenkins at right tackle and Nyman at guard because he's not a guard, so that's not going to work.
Yeah,
but more you're hoping that Nyman's college work at right tackle will he'll have enough like muscle memory of that. And they've apparently been working him a little bit there. Of course, if they've been working him there and they still won't put him in,
is it bad?
Maybe that means something.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been a staunch like they need to keep Elton at right tackle because they need to give him time. It's not fair to only give him 3 games or 4 games or 5 games off an ACL tear that he came back from early. It's not fair to him to move him so quickly when he's like put all this work in to come back this fast. But it's just bad. The whole offensive line is bad, and they can't afford for it to be that bad. And they need to change something because they can't do anything on offense. They look so inept. They can't move the ball.
Offensive line, the trenches is, it's always something I've wanted to do is a little bit correlation analysis of different positions. I've had this feeling that offensive line is going to be like the second biggest driver of wins after the quarterback.
I wouldn't, yeah. And it's bad. But do you want to move on to?
Yeah, so I had a couple other
notes
here and there. I felt like Dylan really struggled today. Some of these get hit in the backfield over and over again. But I also felt like he had trouble with his footing.
Couldn't catch the ball.
Slipping. He dropped the ball a couple of times that he should have had. And the muffed handoff as well that turned into 3 points.
Yeah, they credit that fumble to Rodgers, but I thought it was Dylan's fault.
Doesn't matter. It's both of their faults. Yeah. But it was actually in his gut, but he just, didn't wrap it up. I don't know what was going on there. Rodgers has been off target again on a lot of his downfield throws. He had the Dobbs underthrew by a mile. That was so far off. I feel like he was expecting something different. I don't know. Or maybe it slipped out of his hand because his thumb was bothering him. He had probably the most open receiver we saw all day, pass catchers say, was Jones on the right sideline going deep. And he just had the ball drift a little bit too far wide, and Jones couldn't get his feet down after he caught it.
I still think Jones has to catch that. Like, if you're the best player on offense, you got to catch that. Like, that's in your hands. You have to make a play. You have to help your quarterback. It's not a perfect throw.
He came down with it. He just couldn't get his feet in bounds.
No, he dropped the ball too. He didn't keep it in his hands. It fell out of his hands.
Oh, well, it was irrelevant because his first foot hit the white.
But if you're the best player on offense,
did he also drop it? I saw he stepped. I thought he only stepped out.
You got to make that play. If you're a Pro Bowler and you're the best player on offense, you need to help the team and make that play.
But the other thing that's kind of related to this whole notion is that they're supposedly top 2 outside threats or deep threats. Lazard and Dobbs, they only combined to catch 8 of their 18 targets.
I don't understand why they have so many deep shots down the sideline. Like, that seems like a staple. For some reason, a staple of the offense is snap, like 5-step drop, immediate throw, whether or not Lazard is past his man or not, whether or not Dobbs is past his man or not, just immediate throw outside the hash, like down the sideline.
One thing that
I don't know why that's
totally disappeared from this offense in like the last 3 or 4 games.
The middle of the field.
Deep and intermediate crossers.
Yeah.
We had Dobbs catch it. We had Watkins catch them. And those, I think, feel like a staple of this kind of offense. One thing I wanted to say about those is, I'm very curious to see what Green Bay's average separation is on their targets compared to the rest of the league. It does not look good. Because, either we get the passes when it's like perfect pass and plus a great catch. You need them both many times to get those plays. And so we had these where, Dobbs running free in the middle and catching and running, Watkins running free in the middle and catching and running. I feel like we just, in addition to that, we're not
everything is hard.
We're not scheming players open with where are the mesh concepts? Where are the crossers?
Well, everything is hard for the offense right now, and I think that other teams have figured out they can play man on us, and we don't have anyone who can separate. They don't have a single guy on the roster.
Like crossing patterns, you can. I mean, that's something you do against man to try to you get a little and rub up each other, and instead you have to do illegal picks. Just get them caught in the wash as they're coming across the field. We haven't been able to design that well either.
They just don't have a single guy. They don't have a single guy who can beat their man.
No, and it seems like a lot of the plays this year have been designed to try to get somebody to just win. Which this is like that's a very McCarthy kind of offense too. So we're just going to
win your one-on-one. Except we don't even have talented receivers. People open. Yeah,
and so related to that, the skill players combined to drop 5 of 34 catchable passes today per PFF.
Like I said, this team is not good at anything. This team, they can't do anything on offense. I mean, what was it? Just a stat from Rob Domofsky just to kind of encapsulate that. I mean, they're averaging 17.8 points per game through the first 6 games, which, according to Rob Domofsky of ESPN, is the lowest over any 6-game span where Aaron Rodgers has been the quarterback. This is the worst, over a 6-game span, this is the worst offense the Packers have had in a decade plus. It's atrocious.
A decade plus with Rodgers.
With Rodgers, yes. I'm not counting
Let's not forget the Brett Hundley experience.
I'm not counting the Seneca Wallace experience. I'm not counting the Brett Hundley experience. Matt Flynn wasn't bad, but that was one game.
Yeah, we need that Matt Flynn 7-touchdown game.
Not counting Scott Tolzien. I'm not counting Deshaun Kaiser. I'm not counting any of these guys. But it's just the offense is just not good. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I have some more negatives I could add. I thought Rodgers looked completely lost. This is some of the worst football he's played in a long time. He looks bad. This looks like he doesn't trust anything that's going on, and he's not trusting his cues. I mean, he was definitely a little dinged up in this game. You could see his hand was bothering him, but he just wasn't firing. I thought the play calling and the personnel usage was borderline criminal at certain parts. I mean, going into the half, Aaron Jones had 3 carries, and he ended the game with 12 touches.
Yeah, what happened to we got to get Aaron Jones the ball more? That just disappeared.
I don't know. They're not getting their best players the ball. They
did try to hit him deep on that one, but there weren't very many targets for him.
And they they can't run the ball, so it's hard to be give these guys more carries. I mean, it's not like they're going anywhere, but you got to give your best players the ball.
They've had games where they had good yards per rush.
Yes, this is the first one where they really couldn't run the ball, I feel like.
Yeah. Other times they've had good efficiency on the number of carries. They just haven't done it very often. This is the first time they're really getting stuffed and hitting the backfield a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, this is the worst I feel like I've seen this O-line play. It was really bad. Do you have anything else you want to add bad on the O-line, or do you want to wrap it up with a quick little special teams diatribe?
So let's go a little bit of special teams. You want to say something about special teams? Should I say something about special teams?
I mean, they blocked a punt, which should have led to points if the offense wasn't inept. But then they had a field goal blocked, and they gave up a touchdown on a blocked punt. So they were bad.
Yep. I had in my notes, this special teams giveth and special teams taketh away.
Yeah, and I mean, they were bad. The special teams was bad today. Just a couple notes. Mario Rogers still returning punts, but Keyshawn Nixon is kick returning now. I thought he looked pretty good returning kicks. I think they'll probably stick with that. I don't really have anything else for the special
The other thing
teams.
is, was I the only one who was thinking this? This is probably relevant because it still would have probably made the field goal. But there's and on the Jets' first field goal, where they went up 3-0 in the first half. They get it to 4th down by chasing Zach Wilson around while he's scrambling and ends up trying to throw away.
I don't think this would have mattered. It would have been
it probably wouldn't have mattered, but it's no, it would have been a 42-yarder.
Okay, it would have been a 42-yarder.
So still usually makeable, but it's at the point where you might miss it, as opposed to a 29-yarder.
They lost by 17. It doesn't matter to me.
It's just a curious little play. Where he stepped out of bounds, and Greg Olsen is saying he stepped out of bounds. Like, why is nobody talking about him stepping out of bounds before he throws that ball? Once he steps out of bounds, the play's over.
I could not care less. The only other thing on special teams,
he didn't even mention it.
But the only other thing on special teams that I wanted to touch on was on the blocked field goal. Just I wanted your thoughts on the fact that they had Jack Coco, Royce Newman, Jake Hansen all next to each other.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention that as I was reading through some game notes. It's like, ugh. And the Jets have Quinnen Williams in there on a block.
Yeah.
On a field goal block attempt. It's like, why on the field goal protection unit don't we have our best blockers up there? Because you no longer are worried about people running down the field on coverage, like punt protection, where you need to have people who, after they finish blocking, can have enough speed to try to help on punt coverage if they get through the first wave of
I just don't know why. Why do you have your three worst guys all next to each other? No offense to Jack Coco, your three worst blockers all next to each other in the middle. I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. But I don't know. I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that. Other than that, I mean, Eric Wilson was the one with the punt block. He's the newest Packer on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I was like, when they first said Eric Wilson, Eric Wilson. It's like, oh yeah, he's the guy they signed for linebacker for special teams, basically, essentially for special teams. Like, it worked.
Yeah, and he did his job.
He did exactly what they hoped for.
Yeah, and I think he had a penalty later in the game, but I'll take it. Whatever. I'll take the block. But yeah, I mean, the special teams was nowhere near the thing is I'm down to worry about special teams once the offense and defense figure it out, because if the offense and defense can't figure it out, I don't even care about special teams at that point.
You know what we can say about this game? Special teams had a field goal blocked and a punt blocked for a touchdown, and they still weren't the worst unit on the field today.
Yep. Very true.
Right?
It's very true.
That's pretty damning.
This is consistent. That's kind of what it's been this year. Is like the special teams has been meh, and they've been not the worst unit because the rest of the team can't figure it out. But do you want to kind of wrap it up? Do you want to hit our player of the game?
Yeah, so my player of the game, I'm going with Jair because the first half he was playing really well. The defense was humming, and it was kind of what we were hoping for. I don't know if they got gassed, if they got they got figured out. They can't figure out second halves. But Jair was looking good in the first half, breaking up passes all over Garrett Wilson. So that was my player of the game.
Yeah, my player of the game was Tunyon. 10 catches, 90 yards. The only guy on offense doing anything. He was pretty much the whole offense for most of the game. But yeah, he was my player of the game. Nice to see him. This is kind of what we were hoping for this year, that with Devontae gone, as he gets back and more comfortable with his knee, we'll see him get a lot of targets this year and become a bigger part of this offense. Yeah. But those are our players of the game. Do you want to hit our closing thoughts? So we had let's continue. You had something about any signs of hope going forward. Well, we kind of touched on the signs of hope going forward. Mine was just that I think they need to reconfigure the offensive line and hope that fixes some of the rushing problems and some of the pass protection issues. That's kind of my main sign of hope, is that maybe if you reconfigure the offensive line, it'll fix enough of the running game and passing game that you can field a competent offense. Right, and I would say maybe a couple of the things we can try to hang some hope on are continued improvement as players recover from major injury, where Tunyon seems to be, maybe he's starting to round into form. We'll get more out of him on offense. And I think Bakhtiari and Jenkins still have room for physical improvement as they get back from their the rust of and the improvement of their strength and agility from their coming back from their injuries. I think we can hope for improvement from some of the new players like Dobbs and Quay Walker, and maybe Devontae Wyatt can give us a little bit more on the D-line when he's able to play. We'll see. I'm a little worried about that Watson keeps getting set so far back in his development by all these injuries that he really is going to be like a redshirt year this year almost, unless he is healthy the rest of the year and really starts coming on. We'll see. But those are the things we can try to hope for, where this team where we can realistically see improvement, not just like, oh, let's follow the rumor mill. Apparently, they got a chance to get Robbie Anderson or Brian Burns in the fire sale coming out of the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, and Robbie Anderson would be helpful for this. Robbie Anderson would be helpful for this team because they need a deep threat. But a deep threat is not going to be all that useful if you can't protect the quarterback because it's not going to have time to get deep. I mean, it'd be helpful to have one because they need speed with Christian Watson out and Sammy Watkins. We don't know when he's even coming back, but they can't protect, so it's not like they're going to be able to take that many of these deep shots downfield.
No, if you had to pick one player from the Carolina Panthers fire sale that I would want,
it's Brian Burns.
It's Brian Burns.
It's not close. Yeah,
and apparently
they're not going to trade him.
The rumors that's got a real possibility of happening that I saw yesterday. I don't know if that's going to.
I doubt it. I mean, maybe for 2 first-round picks, but I don't feel like I want to do that.
But it just seems like
this team is not in the position to be trading multiple picks. This team is not good enough to be
seem at all
trading
like the kind of
picks.
thing that the Packers would ever do. So that's why I don't expect it to be
not about what they would ever do. Does Brian Burns make this team a Super Bowl contender? I don't think so. They don't have offense.
Not what they need.
They just don't. There's no one player where if you drop them in there, this team magically is going to win the NFC. Right? I don't think there's any one player.
Adams.
No.
Should I really troll?
No, that I don't think that would even matter.
No, it's not either because it's just trolling because I don't think their offensive line has been playing well enough yet. If
Devontae was on this team, they're one win better maybe right now. They're probably 4-2, but I don't think I feel that much better about the team. It doesn't fix anything. It fixes some stuff. It fixes the fact that their passing game is terrible, and it fixes some of their quick game. But they still can't block. They still can't take deep shots because they can't protect. They still can't move anyone in the running game. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're not in a position to make a big deadline move, in my opinion, where you're trading multiple firsts for.
No,
DJ
I don't think
Moore
I don't think they'll ever do something like that where they trade multiple firsts for somebody. I don't think that's going to happen.
That's what the price tag for Brian Burns would be.
Probably because he's a good
pass
player.
rushers. Yeah. And
so
anyway, closing.
We got a couple more closing thoughts. You already talked a little bit about yours, where you feel like
my closing thoughts are. This team needs to find their identity because they're not good at anything right now. They're very mediocre to bad at everything, and they need to kind of do some soul searching and be like, what are we good at? And because it's nothing right now. I don't know. That's all I have. That's all I've got for them.
Yeah, and my closing thought is that thing that I feel like is most holding this team back seem to be is just generally lacking the cohesion and team play that you need to be a good team. When you have a good team, everybody's working together and there's no failures anywhere so that the whole unit is performing well. And I think that's the part that's the Packers are the worst at this year. The parts of the game that need coordination the most, are the parts that they're failing at the most this year. The zone defense in the first 5 games of the year where they're failing to communicate, failing to pass off the receivers properly, and everybody to be where they're supposed to be to have the defense covered right. Now, the coverage was better today, though it was mostly not zone. And then the offensive line coordination, it's the same idea. They're not doing their assignments or communicating about who's going to do what for the whole unit to work. And I feel like it's that ability to coordinate the different players doing their jobs and who's going to pick up what part of the job on the fly during the play that they're the worst at this year. Even more than saying they don't have the talent, they just don't seem to know who's supposed to do what and how to work together on the team as a unit.
I think in all of the noise about losing Devontae Adams, I think people kind of really brushed over and passed over how big a brain drain this coaching staff got in the offseason. I mean, They lost their offensive coordinator, tight end coach, quarterback coach, pass rush, edge rush coach. And then they had to promote their O-line coach to offensive coordinator, and so their assistant O-line coach, now the O-line coach. I mean, there was just a huge brain drain.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
On this coaching staff, and I think it's something that people didn't talk about because of the big flashy thing was, they lost Devontae Adams. How's the passing game going to work? So much of it funneled through him. I think we're seeing a way bigger impact from this coaching shuffle than we are from losing Devontae.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something that keep an eye on as the year goes on.
Yeah.
And maybe this is one of those things that whatever they're trying to do new in their positions takes a little while to come together. I'm looking for another thing for hope.
Hopefully.
And so you see this sometimes where teams start off the year and they're just god awful on defense. People are running around. Receivers are just waltzing through the middle of the defense uncovered, and then by the end of the year they're putting it together.
We'll see. I hope so. But anyway, that's kind of all we had for you guys today. Thank you so much for checking out the post game for this horrible, awful, no good, very bad game. We will be doing a pregame for Packers Commanders on Thursday night. Come check that out. It will be on every podcast platform you can find: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc., etc. Come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker for all the latest episodes and Packers news and notes. Come find us on Spotify. Subscribe to us at Father Son Packers Podcasts. Really help us get our numbers up. We'd really appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll be giving you a pregame and a postgame next Sunday night for a Packers win, and we'll get back above 500. Fingers crossed. But anyway, until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.